Hey friends, today I want to discuss how to select your fabric and how to cut it on the fold. Here I have two examples of fabric that I've used to create my linings. This one on the left is Nike Performance fabric. It is dead stock that I purchased from my local fabric store. And this over here is a remnant or scraps from a swimsuit. I asked a dear friend of mine to let me use some of her leftovers, some of her stash, because she had this beige swimwear fabric, and I wanted to use a light color for some of these demonstrations. Now, what these fabrics have in common, even though they're sold for different purposes, the performance fabric is sold to sew leggings, for example, and this is clearly to make a swimsuit. But what they have in common is that they're both four-way stretch. In other words, they stretch vertically this way and this way, and as does the swimsuit fabric. It stretches this way and this way. So you have many options as to what to use as long as you're using four-way stretch. It doesn't even matter if it's like t-shirt fabric, as long as it stretches in both directions. Now, let's talk about what it means if you're a new sewist. This is the pattern piece that we're working with, and we're trying to get two of this shape. And you can see that this is only half of the shape. Well, the pattern says fold here, and the instructions say cut to unfold. So I will demonstrate for you how to get this shape out of this. First, I've got a little scrap here, a little swatch of fabric, and the instructions also say cut on the grain. So first I'm going to look, it's harder to identify the grain line on knit fabrics, but if you wear sweaters or if you're a knitter, you know what a knit stitch looks like, right? It's these little V shapes going down the fabric. And in this fabric, because it is black on both sides with no print, it's more difficult for me to identify the right or wrong side. I'm just going to choose which one. This side is more matte, so I'm going to call that my wrong side. This side is more shiny, so I'm going to call that my right side, because this is the side that I want to wear against my hair. The more shiny the fabric, the less friction there will be against my hair, if that's helpful for you. Then, for identifying the grain line, if you can see the back of my head, I'm sorry about that. I'm just getting in closer, and what I'm looking for is these really, really tiny rows of knit stitches. The lines are going vertical on the fabric here. So once you've identified that, I'm going to fold my fabric in half. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put the fold on the left here. And then I'm going to look at the grain line. I'm going to look for those knit stitches and make sure that they're perfectly vertical. And then I'm going to line it up in my cutting mat to one of these vertical lines. Okay, then I can take my pattern piece and just make sure that you have enough fabric to cover the pattern piece. I'll actually move it over here if it's closer for you to see. The sun is starting to change, the light is changing as I make this video. But I've checked my grain line. I've got my pattern piece here on the fold, and now I'm able to cut my pattern piece out, which I'm going to do. I'm using a rotary cutter because that's just what I prefer. I'm going to use my little bowl of pins here to weigh down the pattern piece. And then I'm going to cut around the pattern piece as close to the edge as I can without cutting the paper in a straight line. Great. Check again before you make, right? Measure twice, cut once. Nothing has shifted. I'm good. So I'm going to keep cutting. And I'm doing this slowly so that you can observe if it's your first time using a rotary cutter. Cut around. You might get a little snag if your blade isn't perfectly sharp, like mine has been used and loved. I'm going to want to tidy this up a little bit. My edge isn't perfectly cut. There we go. And then I'm going to turn this around just to make it easier for me because I'm right-handed. I'm lining it up against the edge on my table here. And now making sure everything is lined, nothing got moved. and you can cut away this dot right here. And so what you should have when you remove your pattern weight and your pattern, there we go. We've got the pattern piece just as we hoped.